That is Zonke. National Agriculture Day coming up, often referred to as National AG Day in South Africa, recognized on the 17th of March. And the day is dedicated to celebrating the hard work of farmers, recognizing their vital role in food security, acknowledging the importance of agricultural sector to the national economy. This is one sector, this I am going to say it safely so, one sector where it will never go out of fashion, because no matter what happens, as human beings, we have to eat, because we have to eat anything, any business whatsoever that is food orientated will never go out of business. And I can put my last bottom dollar. But anyway, observing the National Agriculture Day, Ryan New, Managing Director of the Original Grain Company, is joining us to unpack what this means and also what is happening within that, in that environment where people are made conscious that this is the next best sector for business. But anyway, Ryan, thank you so much for making time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be with you.
Oh, thank you for just stepping up and talking to us a little bit earlier. So let's talk about the role agriculture plays in supporting food security and rural livelihoods.
Yeah, look, I think agriculture is the backbone of food security in South Africa, as you stated in your intro. It's never going to go away. It's vitally important to us. And I think there's a couple of components that we don't sort of realize. And I think most importantly, if we look at the role it plays, we have to also identify from the farming sector what are the challenges which farmers are facing, both subsistence and commercial farmers, to ensure that they can meet that role of being that backbone. And I think there's a misconception around the availability of land to farmers, which is not the case. You know, through the Land Reform Program, about 2.5 hectares of agricultural land has been made available. And the three pillars of the Land Reform Program is around restitution, redistribution, and tenure. But the issues we face there are not necessarily the availability of land. The availability of land, it is there. The problem we face is threefold. We lack the necessary skills in order to scale up from what many are doing from a cash crop to a larger commercial farmer. We lack the necessary funding. And then a very important one is we also lack the necessary route to market. And I think innovation around farming and around what we're doing at the Original Grain Company is looking to target those three areas to ensure that as we say, agriculture can remain the backbone. Mm.
And you're talking about the chain, which is so important, with food security being a critical issue across Africa. How does then the Original Grain Company's model of sourcing directly from farmers help stabilize the food supply chain compared to traditional agency models?
So I think if you look at our approach to the market, we take it a step further because our aim is to invest in the farmers at the point of actual planting. So as much as point 3 on the concerns that I made is a lack, the route to market, what we do is we enter to them in the early stages. We meet with farmers. We have access to various databases which are made available to us by local government. And then we go in the early stages and invest into those farmers to assist them to get through points 1, 2, and 3, and point 1 being the lack of necessary skill, point 2 being funding. So by providing them with the necessary skills, by assisting them with funding, and then number 3, providing them with route to market, we can sort of complete the cycle and assist them in completing the cycle. And through various channels that exist with our company, we have routes to market both locally and internationally, which doesn't put the farmer in a position whereby he might be increasing his productivity from the assistance we give them, but he's now unable to move that stock. We have existing channels which will help him to move it. So I think it's a full approach. I don't think we can just necessarily come in there and say, right, let us help you take product to market, because a lot of the times, many of the farmers are not even in a position where they've been able to scale up from cash crop to being something more of a commercial farmer. And I think where there's also a misconception there is, well, where people want to look to just help them get product to market. They don't have that product because they haven't even got to the point whereby they can sort of increase their productivity.
Mm. And how does investment and partnerships in agriculture help more land become productive?
So it covers those points again, because, as I say, the land is available. It has been quite nicely redistributed to them. So if we invest into those farmers at that point, that will give them the advantage to be more productive, because there's a focus on innovation around farming, which is vitally important to target the challenges which are coming forward for farmers. And if I can touch on those quickly, some of the biggest challenges farmers are facing today. The biggest one is being rising input costs. You know, we faced with huge uncertainty around fuel with the current instability in the Middle East. Fertilizer, fuel, and seed are enormous expenses when you're looking at a farmer wanting to scale up and want to increase what he's growing and move away from cash crop towards a more commercial farmer. So rising input costs is a massive challenge. The second one that they face is weather. Now, we have limited control, obviously, on the weather, but if we're able to look at more innovative ways of farming and approaching and understanding the weather, we can sort of work around those cycles. We were faced last season with really unpredictable rain, and that had a massive input on our crop harvest at the end of last year. The other one we currently face, obviously, is animal disease. We faced with foot and mouth, which is a big problem in South Africa at the moment. And if I can just touch on how that affects more of the farmers that I'm involved in, that's from the grain perspective. You know, many people don't realize that from a farming perspective, they use cattle as their savings, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And we're currently in a challenge now. We sort of 4 to 5 months away from harvest of last year's planting. And this is the time that many of the farmers now would fall on selling their cattle to generate cash flow, to see them through for the remaining months until they're able to harvest. And with the current restrictions in place, they're not able to do that. They can't sell the cattle. There's restrictions on the sale, and now they're faced with a lot of pressure around cash flow, and that's a reality for the farmers is cash flow, because what they put in the ground in November last year, they're only going to realize in about 8 to 10 months' time. So the foot and mouth has a massive impact on the grain farmers that I work directly with and that we are directly invested into. So to go back to your question, by identifying the challenges that these farmers face and how our investments can reduce or mitigate that risk, still going back to the three main points, as I said, skills, funding, and route to market. You know, I believe it seems like it's a lot easier said than done. We can get to the point, and we've seen it with our company over the last couple of years. We can get to the point whereby these farmers are not just acting as cash crop, and I keep referring to subsistence farmers. They're able to contribute to the economy, and they are able to contribute to food security in South Africa.
And then tell me, in terms of, do you have any frameworks in place? Let's say for some unknown reason, you have this young farmer, they are new in the business, but somehow they failed maybe in the past 2 seasons, but they do have this land that is accessible. Do you have a system where then you or your organization or whatever it is that you run can go in and say, okay, Mr. Thabo, we will take your land, assist here and there, and break down in terms of what then he gets, instead of just maybe renting the space? But you have a process. So we don't. So that's a good point to touch on. So we do not want to disempower the farmer whatsoever. I think with our company we have a combination of farms whereby we're invested in, and we merely rent the land and grow it for ourselves. But that's one arm of the Original Grain Company and the Original Grain Fund. The other arm is a level of upliftment and empowerment. It's a big focus for us. So
So when we go into a farmer, there's an assessment that we will do with regards to the farmer as the individual. A lot of the times, the farmers are usually referred to us from a database which is supplied by local government, so we have an idea of their credibility already. And then from a land perspective, we'll do an assessment on the land, the quality of the soil, whether it's virgin soil or not, have they planted on before. We will discuss some of the challenges he faced the previous season as to why he wasn't able to be successful. The majority of the time there, when we look at the challenges, it's mainly because of the lack of capital they're able to invest in acquiring the correct seeds or mechanization or innovation. So that's usually where we see them facing a barrier to entry. So we never put off with something like that. And it's seldom we find something which will tell us, look, we're not able to invest in this farmer. And then we never take away, the model doesn't just take us as renting the land from him. So he will have, we essentially buy the crop in advance from him. That's how we structure it. So we provide him with the capital after we do an assessment on what we expect him to be able to grow and our estimated yield. We effectively provide him then with that capital, which will then is allowed to pay for the entire process from purchase of seed to harvest. And then when we sell that product and take that product to market, he then shares in the profit which is generated from that. And then into cycle 2, he's welcome to do it on his own if he feels it. We don't tie him into anything long term, or if he'd like to do it with us on the second round, it goes on and it goes on and goes on. So we very much invest into the farmer in this particular channel so that he has a level of involvement, upliftment. It's a big part of what we do.
And you've expanded. The company has successfully expanded into Gaborone, Dar es Salaam. How do you adapt your support for farmers across these different regional climates and economic landscapes?
So I think that comes down to the availability, the sort of availability of our farming network, which we've built up quite extensively in South Africa. And once we established the blueprint of our model, and it did take a few years to understand how it's going to work with regards to investing into farmers as opposed to renting, which we touched on now. And then once we had the blueprint and the framework of how the model works, it was quite easy for us then to mimic it and then to partner up with farmers in those particular areas who have an understanding of that climate and the soil type, which are the main sort of factors of concern, and then to sort of copy and paste what we've done in the South African farms into that. We also are not sort of new to those areas because we have offices established there because they're existing channels in which we supply. So although this arm of the original grain company around planting and growing and investing into farmers is new as we expand into Southern Africa, our trading channels have been existed in that area for many years. We move agricultural products into Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, DRC. And through those channels, this business is network based. We've established incredible relationships with farmers in those areas, and they're always excited to be involved with us so that we can look to have control at source. And I think that's important for us, is to have control at source to be able to assist and uplift. So yeah, it's grown steadily. It has its challenges, but it has grown well.
And I know that we're going to take a small break, but before we do, just something to think about here, Ryan, in terms of the new generation, the next generation, the youth, because that's where we need to zone into to sort of like change their mindset. The original grain company has been doing some really fantastic work. What message would you give to the youth to entice them to look at agriculture as a sector that is so viable and that is actually the future when we look, I say 2030 going forward. But think about it. We'll be back in just a second.
There's something new happening on SABC2. Fresh stories, bold moves. It's just a whole new vibe. And I'm part of that vibe in Pimville. My name is Jesse Suntele, and you can catch me Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Living every beat, the pulse of SA.
This Human Rights Month, we commemorate a significant milestone, the Bill of Rights at 30, making SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. The Jet Set Breakfast, music, culture, lively and critical discussions on SAfm.
And I am in conversation with Ryan New, Managing Director of the Original Grain Company, and talking about agriculture, also acknowledging the fact that it is National Agriculture Day, recognized on the 17th of March. Welcome back, Ryan. I was asking a question about the youth because we need to really entice the youth to look at this particular sector as something that is lucrative. I was just laughing at myself saying 2030 as if 2030 is 10 years. It's just 4 years.
Not far away.
It's not far. It's not far.
I think my immediate thought would be for them is to not be despondent, not be despondent about the challenges which are perceived challenges which are faced in the agricultural market, because the reality is if we have a situation of them now moving, as we do, many of the youth wanting to move to the city and move away from subsistence farming, we're never going to be in a position whereby we see significant growth. And I think there's a level of fear around farming, which is attracting them to the city because they feel it may be the better option. So my advice to them is to not be despondent. There is definitely assistance both from what I do in my company and many other companies that are doing very similar things, who can provide you with the assistance that is needed to plant, to get from planting to harvest. The help is at hand, if I can say that.
And then sustainability-wise, National Agriculture Day is also about stewardship. How is your team balancing the push for high yields with need for sustainable soil, healthy farming, the practices among your suppliers?
Yeah, so I think what's important there is you mentioned the yield. That's always what we are sort of driving for, because when we're facing the unpredictability of climate change, then we're looking at how we can manage that to increase the yield. So what's important is innovation. And innovation can be in many forms. Innovation can be at looking at more advanced ways of managing the crop. Very important thing that we've invested a lot of money into. What we do with farming is soil testing on a large scale across the land to ensure what areas need what fertilizer or different growth patterns. And the focus towards innovation is actually the only way to get the farmers to the point of being able to increase that yield, particularly under the challenges of the climate change that we face.
And just before we end our conversation, any success stories? I think at the end of the day, we often want to hear so-and-so was successful and this is where we assisted and this is what happened.
Look, so I think where we've seen a lot of success, if I can give from an area perspective, where we've had a lot of focus is in the Vrede region, in the Free State. It's been an area that we've focused quite heavily our operations in the last 2 years. There's a number of farmers there, both on a commercial level and, if I can say, on a more upliftment sort of level, whereby we've taken productivity from a yield perspective from as low as 3 metric tons per hectare in the white maize sector up to as high as 6 or 7, and that, as I said, has come around from innovation and expertise that we've offered them. So, without giving specific detail, I can say that region in particular is where we've seen some great stories and growth over the last couple of years, and we expect to see many more.
And when we talk about grain, I think many of us, our minds focus on maize.
Yes.
Are there any other types of grains that are easy to farm, especially within our region, the South African region?
Look, so easy is it's a challenging word to use when it comes to
farming. It's too broad, I know.
It's very broad, but look, it's a case of weighing up the sort of work that goes into the farming, but also the cost associated. So that's a big aspect when you look at the cost for the farmer. So if I can compare white maize, which we currently obviously it's one of the staples in Africa, and we're a big grower. We had a very successful harvest across South Africa last season. And then if I can look at something else like soybean as a comparison, if we can do those two, which is also a big product grown in the Free State region, from a cost perspective, you're looking at it's going to cost about 17,000 Rand per hectare to plant white maize. That's the sort of number that you're looking at, which is a very high input cost for a lot of farmers, and many times a barrier to entry for them. So they would look at breaking up that with something like soybean, which would cost a lot less, as low as 7,000 Rand per hectare from plant to harvest. The difference there then is threefold. So you've got input cost, you've then got yield. As I mentioned before, white maize yield, we can get as much as 6 to 7 metric tons per hectare. Soybeans, you're going to get less. You're going to get about 2 metric tons per hectare. And then we have the cost factor, which is the selling price factor. Soybeans can get as much as 8,500 Rand per metric ton. At the moment, we're all very under a lot of pressure because the white maize market price is incredibly low, the lowest it's been in a long time. It closed at 3,300 Rand per metric ton on Friday. So to answer your question, those are the sort of areas that they look at before they decide what they want to farm in. There's no shortage of demand for white maize, but we also have to look at the expected pricing that's going to be in play when we sell at the end of our harvest, and that also can have a contributing factor on what gets decided to plant. At the moment, from our side, the Original Grain Company, we focus majority on white maize. Our existing channels into the market, into Africa, see us supplying maize meal on large volumes to various channels. So we are very much focused on white maize and the growing of the same.
Oh, I've just got a question from Fifi. So Fifi says, please ask your guest. We are a cooperative of 10 women, and we have land. And do they also assist when we are a team, rather than just being an individual that owns a farm?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a good point, because we do get that quite often, where there is a community-based land which is under lease or ownership, or a network of family members that have the same. So no, it's definitely not restricted to individuals. It's to groups or family members or friends who have land available. And as I say, there's plenty of land available. This we know, we've learned. So we're happy to assist more than just individuals.
This is very insightful, Ryan. For information, where does one go if they want to Google just to check how it all works at their own time?
If you Google the Original Grain Company, then our website will come up there. There'll be various forms and some information around current harvest, yields, and various things that we spoke about today. It's all on the website, and they can make contact with me or anyone of my team via there. And I think, from my side, as I touched on, it's a level of encouragement. It can be quite daunting around farming, the challenges that are faced. We as a company have a balance of both commercial and upliftment. We're very focused on growing the upliftment at the moment. And we have the knowledge, we have the resources, which is important. I just want to make that clear. We don't rely on government funding. So the Original Grain Company raises its own funding to assist these farmers. And we see huge opportunity to be able to think out of the box and be able to assist farmers who maybe feel that it's too big of a challenge to face to expand on growing on the land that they have.
That is so true. Ryan New, Managing Director of the Original Grain Company. Thank you so much for making time. And when is the 17th again? It's Tuesday. So Tuesday.
Tuesday. That's right.
Yeah. National Agriculture Day. I suppose, you know what, this is something, don't wait for Tuesday. Just make it a day-to-day thing.
I was going to say to you, it's an everyday affair in our business. But yeah, it's an extra reason to get excited come Tuesday.
Yeah, and we eat on a daily basis anyway. So it only makes sense. Thank you so much, and have yourself a great Sunday. And bye-bye for now.
You too. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye.
Big Fat Juicy. The choice is yours.
Sithandwa sa wena